has come to reality. This is something that we were in the process of doing over a while, and we're honored to be able to dedicate this memorial here today. Board of Trustees approved the project with the idea that we would recognize the service of our first responders, past, present, and future. So holding up this was the dedication here for Chief Choate. We wanted to make sure that the first one we did is dedicated and honored in his memory. And then after this, at future dates, we will have other dedications for other personnel that have gone on. So I'm going to read this resolution. We'll do it this way and pass it off to his daughters. So I'll just read this, and between vehicles I will, I thought it was another trailer for the cleanup. We just completed the cleanup, and so I thought it was somebody else that missed the deadline. So, Columbia Township, we have a resolution of appreciation to Chief Vine Hazael Choate for his 40 years of service to the residents of Columbia Township with the fire services. During his 40 years of service with Columbia Township, he was promoted to the rank of chief due to his dedication, consistent work ethic, and strong sense of commitment to our community. And whereas Chief Vine Choate and his family sacrificed many holidays and much other valuable family time to serve our residents during special events as well as the everyday calls for help. And whereas during his years of service, Chief Vine Choate saw the expansion of the department that provided for the modern and efficient operation is still in operation and serves our community today. Whereas Chief Vine Choate trained and guided many officers that started their fire service careers with Columbia Township. And whereas Chief Vine Choate's vast experience in both life and fire service gave him great credence when imparting his wisdom on his fellow officers and personnel. And whereas the residents of Columbia Township will be forever indebted to Chief Vine Choate and his family for his dedication and years of service to Columbia Township. And now therefore be it resolved that on behalf of the Columbia Township Board of Trustees, as well as the residents of the Columbia Township that we represent, Chief Vine Choate is commended and thanked for his many years of exemplary selfless service to the community, and be it further resolved that the Columbia Township Board of Trustees expresses their sincere appreciation and dedicate this First Responders Memorial in honor of Chief Vine Hazael Choate. Give this to the family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you turn it on so they can get a picture of you holding it?
That's our dedication. I would think that if anybody wants to offer, this is kind of an impromptu thing, but if there's, I understand there are people that served with Chief Choate. If anybody wants to offer a story or
Denny's full of them.
Come on, Denny.
I'd say come on up and share it. I'm sure he would have appreciated it, or at least
Be here all day.
can't tell you.
That's what the reputation is.
There you go.
15-minute limit.
And thank you for the service of those who served with the chief as well. We appreciate that always. Okay.
Go ahead, Danny, start your stories. Well, we don't have all day. One of the biggest things, Vine would be up here, and first thing he'd say is, "I don't want to fuss. Don't fuss over me." And he's not here, so we can do whatever the heck we want. But it's one of those things that, in his case, the next thing he would say is, "There isn't anything I did without the men and women of the fire department, and also their wives. When that phone rings and you take off, we all know our wives suffered dearly, especially when we had little kids at home." And Vine understood that. And the biggest thing that I can think of as far as Vine goes is he was the right person in the right place at the right time. He started out in the fire department, he was 15 years old. And I'm not sure if Lester Goings was the chief or John Kay was the chief at that time. But through the years, when he started out, the only vehicle that the fire department has was a 38 Dodge. And we saved the pump off of that, and Vine saved the bell off of that, which the Firemen's Association has. But one of the first things that Vine, do you guys still have the picture that was in the garage of everybody standing in front of the 49?
No, I turned that over to Sean Lutz, and it's gone missing.
Oh dear, okay. Well, that was when the 49 was brand new, and that was the fire department at that point in time. And Vine basically started from when we were just a small town horse and buggy fire department and brought us up into the modern era. One of his favorite things, and I think everybody here remembers, woe be it unto you if you to refer to it as the fire barn. Because the first words out of Vine's mouth were, no, we don't have horses anymore.
I made that mistake once.
Pardon me?
I made that mistake once.
Yeah.
So have I, since I married this
Yeah, just the things that he did, and you know, he was chief down to Paulding for, you guys have done it, what, 10
7 years.
Okay, then he came back up here, and after Fred Snyder, he was chief up here. He was the chief when Cooper's burned. It's the one fire he never talked about. And from what I've heard, he spent, what, 36 hours without sleep
Something like that.
on the fire scene with it. And finally got to the point the fireman said to him, you got to go home and get some sleep. And Vine always would listen to other people. And when his fireman said, hey, you really ought to be doing this or doing that, he would listen, and occasionally he might do it. But when we had a good fire and we really did everything right, when people would speak to him about it, he'd say, it's the men and women of Columbia Township that did this. If somebody came in and was belly aching about something that would happen, first words out of his mouth were, that was my decision. Never ever was it put off onto the firemen. When he was chief, well, we had the first women in the department. We had the training program. We had some of our firefighters had the full 240-hour program. We went from one station in Brooklyn to a car wash, and then we ended up down here. We had the Clark Lake station. We had 3 trucks at one point in time, and went up to where we're at when we turned it over to Ron, with two stations fully equipped, modern equipment, thanks to revenue sharing. And we always ran the department on $72,000 a year. That was our operating budget. That'll give you a goal to work for there, Scott.
When I started, it was 172, so we went up a little bit.
Yeah. But he always got along with everybody, and he was able to convince people, oh, this is what we need to do. Rarely did he have any problem with the township board or supervisor. And basically, we were very blessed because the township board and the supervisor would just allow us to do our thing. And he treated every dime that we spent like it was his own money. And at the same time, he was always looking out for what was the best for the people of the township. When you talk about wearing clothes, I remember one time he came to a fire in a tux. And I don't know whether it was a wedding or a reception after a wedding or what it was, but he came in a tux, and a couple times he came in a suit, and that was not Vine. Yeah, we got tons of stories, but you got to figure we had years and years together with the fire department, and we did some fabulous stuff because at one point in time we had an arsonist, and everybody stepped up, and that was a turning point in the department from the standpoint that well, you guys remember we had some sessions afterwards. We do a post-mortem after every fire. A couple times we just turned the lights off and everybody could speak speak their mind or whatever, but we went out, we got ourselves set up where we reset all of our trucks, so we had duals, and the first big fire that paid off was a cider mill in Napoleon, because we pulled in there and laid duels from the corner of Nottawasapi and M50 down to the cider mill. And we put the 49, we resurrected the 49. David Donaldson gave us $125 to get that truck out of mothballs. That was the limit. And I think we spent $45, $50, something like that, for a battery and a radio and a fan belt, I think, for it. And that truck had a 500-gallon-a-minute pump. And we would put that into water, and I remember that morning, Max put that truck into that drain that's right there, which was basically an open sewer. And we started pumping water, and we weren't hooked up to, our pumper wasn't hooked up to any tankers. Jay Hawley came over and says, "Where are you getting that water from?" Took his hand and he kind of scooped through the water, and he's sipping of it, and which is what you would do every once in a while if you were a little dry. And David Kay was sitting on a Keeney loop with an 1.25 inch straight pipe going into that fire, and he just looked up at Jay and he said, "My dad's pumping out of the creek down there." And Jay practically lost it. He had no idea that's what was going on. But after that, we started pumping from any water source we had in the community. And at one point in time, the best we could do as a fire rating with insurance services was a 9, and we had achieved that. And then we had a couple of fires, and one was at the house of a gal that worked for an insurance company. And her boss came out immediately, and we had the big yellow hose laying down in the middle of the road. And he started asking Vine questions. He went to the shop the next business day. It was on a weekend. And he said, "What are you guys doing?" He said, "We got 1,200 feet of basically over the ground water main. We've got all this water." He said, "We have unlimited water source." And shortly thereafter, we started getting calls from other insurance companies. "What the heck's going on? You're rated a 9, but such and such an insurance company is rating you as an 8. And that agent went to his underwriters, explained what was going on, and they upped our rating to an 8, which was better than a 9. And after that, somebody else picked us up to a 7 for just our ability to deliver water. And it was a lot of hard work on everybody's part. A lot of hose we packed, washed and packed. Yeah, everybody's nodding over here. But Vine was the one that held us all together. Vine was the one that everybody respected. He wouldn't ask you to do anything he wouldn't do himself. And there was a number of times that he went in instead of somebody else because he was really concerned that it was a little on the dangerous side. And I'll never forget my first fire with him. Was a 2-story farmhouse out on Arnold Road. And I got there because I lived on that side of the township. And Vine came with the pumper, and he set the pumper up, pulled out a line, and he said, "Follow me." And I did. We went in right up the stairs. It was kids had been playing with matches, and they had the bedding on fire in an upstairs bedroom. And we went up the stairs, went to the left, we knocked the fire down, and Vine said, "Let's get the window open." We got the window open, we started throwing bedding out the window, got everything cleaned up on it. You got to realize that there was no smoke mask. You were right on the floor and kept your nose on the floor, and it wasn't pretty when you got done. But I always followed him. Whatever he said, we would do. So.
What years was Vine the chief?
Back here in '63, he became fire chief just shortly after we moved back here, and I'm not sure what year he retired.
We did.
85.
85 was it? Yeah, he retired in '85, but I want to say he became chief in about '65. It could be. It was.
It had to be right about then.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think he was chief before he went down to Paulding too.
I don't remember that.
Okay.
I'm too little.
Date's put it at over 40 years service, so the records may not have been.
So about 20 years as chief and 20
I
years.
think he actually started out rolling the hoses and answering the phone for the fire department because he was so young.
Yeah.
Well, he lied about his age.
Yeah. You'd always laugh when he'd say that.
Well, you were supposed to be 18 and he was only 16, so he lied about his age.
Now we have a cover-up. It's called a cadet.
No different than him starting at Beals.
Right.
He was 12 years old and started out washing windows.
Yep.
You know, it's interesting. We always dreaded, and Scott can appreciate this. Always dreaded when we had a new board, because every once in a while you'd have 2 or 3 new faces. You had no idea what they would do, and we had a new supervisor. And when we had our fire board meeting, nothing ever happened at the fire board really to speak of. It was almost a half an hour discussion about we did this, we did that. We're looking at this down the road, and everybody would say, okay, that's fine, we're cool with it. But at this particular fire board meeting, our supervisor came up with a list of new rules for the fire department. And Vine sat there and he just got redder and redder and redder. Didn't say a word, which he usually wouldn't. And then she said, and there'll be no more personal equipment on the apparatus floor. And Vine sat there, listened to her, she got all done. He said, I'm going to tender my resignation. And he said, for all the time I've been on the fire department, I've always been able to wash my truck on the apparatus floor. Lots of times the floor is cleaner when I leave than it was when I came in. And for those of you guys who have ridden in Vine's truck, you could drop a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the floor of his truck, pick it up and eat it without even thinking about it. His truck was immaculate, and it goes back to when he first started washing trucks for the fire department. When you came back from a fire, unless it was a long fire and we were tired and had to work it the next day, we'd wash trucks before we were done. And all the hose was washed and laid out, and next night you'd be there and roll it, and repack it, and whatever. But his trucks were always clean. Woe be it unto you, or you took one off through the mud like on a grass runner, because you were the one that was going to wash the truck. But,
Okay. I would ask what allowed us all to gather here today, the help of the family to put this together. Kathy Jo Colbert, our township clerk, will pass around a sheet or a pad or something like that. As we do future dedications, if you would like to be invited and reminded of the event, leave us with a name and a number, email address, and that way we can keep people. This was kind of the first pulling people together, but from here we can give people updates. And also with our chiefs, as we move forward in the township to continue the work that was started those years ago, what is the department, what is the service, what is going to be done for the residents, for our community for years to come. So if there's input that you have that you're willing to share, we need that. We look for that. So I encourage you to, when she passes that around, to please sign up for it, and that'll help us communicate, okay? So I thank everybody for coming. Denny, I thank you for the story. Rhoda, anybody?
Thanks for coming. Thank you for doing this for us.
We appreciate it.
Way to start it up. Thank you.